I'm going to read you a little bit from the book, and I'm happy to talk about it too, and to talk about some of what Maureen said. It's also the perfect Thanksgiving book, which you can tell me. And it's funny because weirdly my dentist called this morning and said, I had to tell you something. I said, what? He goes, my first 2 patients came in and they were all complaining about having to go to their husbands' families for Thanksgiving, and all I kept thinking was, I just started your book and I wanted to like tell them all about it, and whatever. It was very funny. He's like, I couldn't wait till they left so I could call you. I said, let me know how the rest of the day goes, and I hang up because I'm like so shy and talking about. So the couple things I'm going to tell you before I start reading is that it's a very long book. It's the longest book I ever wrote, and in terms of sort of craft of fiction stuff, it took me 7 years. And I kept thinking, why is this book taking so long to write? I really didn't realize how long it was. And then weirdly, I also didn't realize it has no chapters. And the editor called me after I turned it in, and he's like, chapters? And I went, oh God, I forgot. I just hadn't even thought about it. I was so like into the writing of it and really trying to kind of have it be this sort of compressed roller coaster adventure that's both funny and not funny at all at the same time. So I put in a lot of space breaks in case anyone had to like go to the bathroom. And it's been interesting because people really are reading it very quickly, which is good news and bad. It's good, I guess, that they like it. The bad news is it took me 7 years to slow down. It's like, that's going to be a problem. All right, so I brought 3 little sections I'm going to read to you from, and then we can talk. And I'm happy to answer any questions about any part of the process. This is the version I've been reading for the last 3 weeks. And the other thing I can tell you, that the horrible thing is like the editing process just doesn't stop, because as I'm writing, it's just like, oh, I couldn't possibly read that anymore, and I just cross it out. So there's a reason why when they publish it, it's done. And I'm sure I can still do all kinds of things. Okay. The other thing I'll tell you about just the very beginning of this, so the origin of this book is that Zadie Smith emailed me and said she was working on this anthology for Dave Eggers. That's always good. I'm like, okay. And would I write a piece for it? And she said, it's got to be about characters. And I'd been thinking about siblings, brothers. And I thought, well, that's a good way to just get right into something. I'll write about 2 angry brothers. And so I started writing, and then, of course, didn't finish it in time for Zadie and had to give her something else. And then Granta called and said, we're doing our 100th issue. Do you have something? And I thought, no. And I really kept thinking, I'm just writing a short story, and literally 203,000 words later, I'm like, Zadie, I finished. Meanwhile, she's written like 4 books. Anyway, so, and I can talk a little bit about that, but you'll see how that unfolds. So here's a little bit from the beginning. May we be forgiven, an incantation, a prayer, the hope that somehow I come out of this alive. Was there ever a time you thought, I'm doing this on purpose, I'm fucking up, and I don't know why? Do you want my recipe for disaster? The warning sign. Last year, Thanksgiving at their house. 20 or 30 people at tables spreading from the dining room into the living room, stopping abruptly at the piano bench. He was at the head, picking turkey out of his teeth, talking about himself. I kept watching him as I went back and forth, carrying plates into the kitchen, the edges of my fingers dipping into unnameable goo, cranberry sauce, sweet potatoes, cold pearl onion, gristle. With every trip back and forth from the dining room to the kitchen, I hated him more. Every sin of our childhood, beginning with his birth, came back. He entered the world 11 months after me, sickly at first, and was given far too much attention. And then, despite what I repeatedly tried to tell him about how horrible he was, he acted as though he believed he was a gift of the gods. They named him George. Geo, he liked to be called. Like that was something cool, something scientific, mathematical, analytical. Geode, I called him, like a sedimentary rock. By the time we were 10 and 11, he was taller than me, broader, stronger. Are you sure he's not the butcher's boy? My father would ask, jokingly. No one laughed. I was bringing in the heavy plates and platters, casseroles caked with the debris of dinner, and no one noticed help was needed. Not George, not his 2 children, not his awful friends, who were in fact in his employ. Among them, a weather girl and assorted spare anchormen and women who sat stiff back and hairsprayed like Ken and Barbie, and not my Chinese-American wife, Claire, who in fact hated turkey and never failed to remind us that her family used to celebrate with roast duck and sticky rice. George's wife, Jane, had been at it all day, cooking, cleaning, serving, was now scraping bones and slop into a giant trash bin. Jane scoured the plates, piling dirty dishes one on top of the other, and dropping the slimy silver into a sink of steamy steamy, soapy, I've been on the road too long. Steamy, soapy water, or else I have to cut the S's in the next book. Glancing at me, she brushed her hair away with the back of her hand and smiled. I went back for more. I looked at their children and imagined them dressed as pilgrims in black buckle shoes doing pilgrim children chores, carrying buckets of milk like human oxen. Nathaniel, 12, and Ashley, 11, sat like lumps at the table, hunched, or more like curled, as if poured into their chairs, truly spineless. Eyes focused on their small screens, the only thing in motion their thumbs. One texting friends no one had ever seen, the other killing digitized terrorists. In the background, 2 televisions loudly competed among themselves for no one's attention. One featuring football, and the other the film Mighty Joe Young. I'm a company man, heart and soul, George says. I'm the network's president of entertainment. I am ever aware, 24/7. There's a television in every room. The fact is, George can't bear to be alone, not even in the bathroom. The turkey platter was at the center of the table, and I reached over my wife's shoulder and lifted it. The tray was heavy and wobbled. I willed myself to stay strong and was able to carry out the mission while balancing a casserole of Brussels sprouts in the crook of my other arm. The turkey was an heirloom bird. It had been rubbed, relaxed, and herbed into submission, into thinking it wasn't so bad to be decapitated and stuffed up the ass with breadcrumbs and cranberries. The bird had been raised with a goal in mind, an actual date. I stood in the kitchen picking at the carcass while Jane did the dishes, bright blue gloves on, up to her elbows and suds. My fingers were deep in the bird, the hollow body still warm, the best bits of stuffing packed in. I dug with my fingers and brought stuffing to my lips. Jane looked at me, my mouth moist, greasy, my fingers curled into what would have been the turkey's G-spot if they had such things. She lifted her hands out of the water and came towards me to plant one on me, not friendly. The kiss was serious, wet, full of desire. It was terrifying and unexpected. She did it, then snapped off her gloves and walked out of the room. I was holding the counter, gripping it with greasy fingers. Dessert was served. Jane asked if anyone wanted coffee and went back into the kitchen, and I followed her like a dog wanting more. She ignored me. Are you ignoring me? I asked. She said nothing and then handed me the coffee. Could you let me have a little pleasure, a little something that's just for myself? She paused. Cream and sugar? From Thanksgiving through Christmas and on into the New Year, all I thought of was George fucking Jane. George on top of her, for special occasion George on the bottom, and once, fantastically, George having her from the back. His eyes focused on a wall-mounted television, the ticker tape of news trickling across the bottom of the screen. I couldn't stop thinking about it. I was convinced that despite his charms, his excess of professional achievement, George wasn't very good in bed, and all he knew about sex he learned from pages of magazines read furtively while shitting. I thought of my brother fucking his wife constantly. I'm going to stop that part there. And that's only, literally, that's probably 4 pages into the book, maybe 5. But just on a writing level, part of what I was really trying to do was to begin to literally sort of paint a picture and to set up a structure of this family and who's in it and who's there. And it's interesting because one of the models, I think, for that kind of a beginning for me are things like John Cheever's book, Bullet Park, which I think starts, paint me a railroad station then, 5 minutes before dark. And I remember for years I always thought that, it's so interesting, it says then in the middle of the sentence. It's not paint me a railroad station 5 minutes before dark, but there's that moment of paint me a railroad station then, 5 minutes before dark. And I remember thinking, that's an interesting pause, like the use of a then right there, because it simultaneously says, like, that by saying then, it's like, do you mean back in time? Like paint me a railroad station then, as opposed to now? Or just pausing to like have you consider, like you do it, you paint me a railroad station. So it's, I mean, that's just a single line, but I guess all that to say, I really think about things that small. And I think, it's hard when you have a book that's 203,000 words long to think about every word, but I really do, and I do a lot of editing and crossing out, and like that. It takes a couple extra years. And it's like a weird sign when I turned the book in and it was 600 and some pages, the editor said, could I add more? I thought, what? I was really figuring they were going to say, you got to cut this thing. He's like, I think you need a little more. So I still think I could cut a lot, but I'll do that privately at home. So I'm going to read you a little further in. And so what happens, and I'm not going to tell you all of it, so there's this moment between Jane and Harry, who's the narrator there, that's obviously complicated. And then it goes forward. I'm skipping forward here. I've already told you some of it. But there's a very kind of violent, traumatic moment. And then suddenly there's George and Harry. And Harry is basically left at George's house to care for the children and to sort of fend for himself a little bit. So this is just a moment when Harry, a little further in, I don't have the page number with me, I should have, is brushing his teeth. And it's about Harry at a certain point also kind of comes undone. So it happens when I'm brushing my teeth. A creeping sensation, like water rushing in, like I'm going under. I brush, I rinse, I look at myself in the mirror. There's a pain in my head, in my eye, and as I'm looking, my face divides. Half of it falls, as if about to cry. It just drops. I try to make a face. I grin, a sloppy half smile. It's as though I'm mocking myself, as though I've been hit with Novocaine. Using the butt of my toothbrush, I poke at my face, almost stabbing, and feel nothing. And as I'm standing there, I realize I'm sort of slouching like a tip marionette. I'm using only one arm. I walk out of the room, stumble. There's a sensation of plastic wrapping around my head. Not exactly pain, but a kind of liquefaction, as though I'm melting and trickling down my own neck. I'm watching as my face continues to fall. It goes entirely slack. I've aged 100 years. I want to change my expression, but can't. I assume it will pass. I assume I've got something in my eye, soap, and it will wash itself out. I come out of the bathroom and finish dressing. It seems to take hours. I'm exhausted. I don't know whether to lie down or keep moving. It occurs to me that I need help. The dog is looking at me strangely. Did something happen, I ask? I can't understand what I'm saying. Can you? My right leg is like a rubber band springing, firing unsteadily under me. I want to call my doctor, but besides the fact I can't remember his number, I can't seem to work the phone. Fine, I think. I'll drive myself to the hospital. I make my way out of the house and into the car. I put the car into reverse and I realize I don't have the key and the engine is not running. I take my foot off the brake and get out. The car rolls down the driveway. I vomit where I'm standing. The car rolls into the street and into the path of an oncoming car. An accident happens. Somehow I'm still standing in the driveway next to the puddle of sick. The cop who arrives is the same one who knows me from the park. How can you be drinking so early, he asks. I can't answer. He wasn't in the car, the woman from next door says. He was just standing there. I try to say the word hospital, but I can't. I try ambulance, but it is long and soupy. Finally, moron comes spurting out, perfectly clear. I make a gesture, the same gesture I would use in a restaurant when asking for a check, please. I make the sign of writing and someone hands me a pen and paper. Something is wrong, I write in large wobbly letters. The effort does me in. I knock to the ground, leveled. I hear someone say, we can water you, and I wonder if I've turned into a plant. So that's a section where he's like having a stroke, which was interesting to try to think about. How do you write someone looking in the bathroom mirror and sort of seeing, themselves, truly having a physical incident, but also kind of an emotional one. So further in, then I'm happy to talk about sort of craft and how this all happens. So among the things is that just as the stroke is happening, Harry goes on his wife leaves him after his moment with Jane, which I don't blame her for. And that's part of why he's left at his brother's house, basically now in his brother's life. And he goes on this internet dating bender, is how I can describe it as. And people keep saying, do you really think people do that? I just say, yes. I haven't looked on Craigslist for a while, since that murder spree that was kind of happening. But I also thought it was very interesting when you look on the Craigslist, the sort of casual encounters. If you look in different states and cities, the range of things that people were looking for also varied. And I thought, that's so weird. There's a geographic specificity. San Francisco wants different things than the suburbs of New York. I'm totally serious. I found it and then I found it, I don't want to say it was addictive, but I was really simultaneously shocked and enthralled. I was like, really? And I was like, meet me at the corner of this or meet me in the bathroom at that. It was just unbelievable. If you're bored, I highly recommend it. Okay. So anyway, so he goes and he has this internet dating spree, and among the people he meets is this woman named Cheryl, who's married, whose husband seems to know that she's doing this. She also has some mental health issues of her own. And they actually develop, kind of a nice relationship. and sort of a friendship. And so here's a scene, and what I'll tell you about this scene is it involves laser tag. And people always say, oh, I mean, I pride myself on really being a fiction writer. I mostly don't make things up. But this laser tag scene actually comes from a moment where I was up at Yaddo, the artist colony in Saratoga Springs. And Yaddo is not remote, but it's you're out of the city and the town is very nearby. And it's a college town, Skidmore College is there. And they have, when I first started going, there were no shopping malls, but now there's a few. And they had a laser tag, I don't know what it's called, Emporium? I don't know what it is, but in a place actually, in a building that used to be a Price Chopper grocery store. And it's surrounded by a CVS and a liquor store and a place where you can buy adult potty seats, like, I don't know, like handicap, like walkers and things, and a Hallmark store and a Friendly's. That's what the entire thing consists of. And so one night I somehow said to all the Yadodians, as I call them, I'm going to take you all to play laser tag, something I'd, of course, never in my life done. And the age range at Yaddo was about 22 to 93. I'm not joking. So I take a range, so I'm taking little old ladies and like children, basically, all to play laser tag. And we get there and they're like, it's like joining them, how do you play laser tag? And we're like, no, this is how you play laser tag. And they like give us this like complete like militaristic picture. You put the vest on your body, you hook the, and we're like, okay. And we go in there and again, they say, there is no pushing, there is no shoving, or whatever. We're like, okay. And we go in and all these like 15-year-old boys charge in like as we're going, and I literally picked one up like by the shirt, and went, no shoving! I dropped him down. And then inside it's all like black lit, kind of purple and glowing. And these kids are like, it's just, this is why I'm sure things happen at school, and there's all these horrible shootings, but they're like bouncing ray beams off of like little hidden mirrors, and we're all getting shot to death all the time. And as soon as you're shot, like your vest, you don't work anymore, so you become basically like, you just have to hide for 15 seconds. But anyway, so that is a moment in reality that then in fiction turns into this, which you'll see, and I'm happy to talk about how that happens. Because I think you're going to like this one. Tuesday morning, just after 8, the phone rings. There's someplace I need you to go with me, Cheryl says. What happened to Hi, how are you? A club, she says. What about your husband? Can't you get him to take you? I can't even get him to go to a movie. So will you go? What is it? Like-minded people, she suggests. Political group? Not exactly, it's more like a social gathering. It's at the laser tag place called Night Vision in the mini mall. The one with the CVS? That's the one. Can we meet in the parking lot? Sure, I say. What's the dress code? Casual, she says. And then there's a skipping forward here, just because I edited it. Sitting in the car outside of CVS waiting, I consider telling Cheryl about the woman from the A&P. I'm not sure why I feel guilty cheating on a woman who's cheating on her husband, or why I feel compelled to tell all to a woman I have absolutely no relationship or commitment to. Yet I'm equally or more uncomfortable keeping it to myself. I'm lost in this peculiar reverie about confession when she taps on the car window, scaring the hell out of me. You changed your hair, I say, realizing every time I see her she looks different. Today it's more of a wedge, like Dorothy Hamill, the ice skater. It's a wig, she says. As we're crossing the parking lot, I begin. In the interest of full disclosure, don't, she says, and I stop. I'm a little nervous, she says. What about? I've never been to one of these things before. She pauses. In the interest of full disclosure, she says, mocking me. I probably should have told you over the phone, but what? I'm not sure if everyone will be clothed, she says. I'm missing a bead. What? I'm just saying that it's what, like a nudist party, and somehow you didn't want to tell me till now? I didn't want you to be nervous, she lies. You didn't want me to say no. She says nothing. Is nudity required? I ask. Optional. Are you going to get naked? I ask. She shrugs. First I want to see what it's like. There's a handwritten sign taped to the door, closed for private party. A table in front of the ticket booth is decorated with a banner that reads, Welcome, our friends and neighbors.org. May I help you? A guy in a polo shirt and khakis asks. I signed up for the event, Cheryl says. Cheryl Stevens. He finds her name on the list and smiles. I see you brought a friend. Is that all right? Of course, the more the merrier. Have you ever played laser tag? Nope, we both say. The referees will review the rules of the game and instruct you on the use of vests and guns. It's an open bar. Your $30 covers that. We also have private parties every other week. That's where the fun stuff happens, but it's behind closed doors, private houses, invitation only. Tonight's more of a meet and greet, good opportunity to get to know us and us get to know you. He smiles. We don the laser outfit, a chest pad with a gun attached on a kind of stretchy leash. One of the referees explains your gun won't fire for 15 seconds after you've been hit. A hit, in effect, turns you off. And remember, no running, no pushing. As we're heading in, we pass the bar where a woman in a yellow sports bra with laser gear on top is drinking white wine from a paper cup. I'm expecting both more and less. I have in my mind's eye images from 1970s sex clubs where half bald or two-paid men fondle sexually liberated women right, left, and center. By comparison, this seems hairier, fleshier, and more juvenile. It may be that the laser tag brings it down. Here, sweaty men run around in BVDs with toy guns and cracked reenactment of games played at home when they were 9 or 10, but now the games have been pushed to a newly awkward edge. Their behavior is made creepier by the plethora of body hair, fat, and an occasional tattoo. I didn't come here as a critic, but I'm amazed at how unattractive the people are and how unashamed. The women have tried a little harder. Some of them wear arty lingerie or some version of hooker hostess costumes. Others look like they're about to take off on a bike ride, sports bras and tight shorts, one with the ass cheeks cut away. All of it reads like porn gone wrong and gives me a new appreciation for the professionals versus the amateurs. And then I cut some more, but I don't want to rain on your parade, but I have to go to the city tomorrow morning. I want to be home in a decent hour, I say to Cheryl. I let a woman touch me, she says, apparently unaware that I was standing right next to her when it happened. Was it your first time? Yes, she pauses. She touched me so lightly it tickled. It sounds like maybe you liked it. I did not like it. That's what you call a double negative. You mean that you liked it? I wouldn't go that far, she says. I've got to go. It's getting late. Do you have time for coffee, she asks? We could debrief. She laughs at her own joke. As we're crossing the parking lot, she says, can you believe such a place exists right here, right next to the drugstore, the hospital supply, and the card shop? I buy cards for my mother-in-law in there. Stinking of sweat, some of it others people's, we go into friendlies. I don't think you were very into it, she says as we're sitting down. Frankly, I was surprised by how depressing it was. Me too, she says. What can I get you, the waitress asks. Coffee, I say. Is that all? Coffee and apple pie? A la mode, she asks. Yes, please. Coffee and apple pie, Cheryl says. That's what grandfather used to order. Fine, I say. 86 the apple pie and I'll have the clown sundae with chocolate ice cream. When the waitress leaves, I lean forward. Why did you want to do this? I ask. I ask Cheryl, who looks tearful. I'm just really curious, she says. I would think you already know that about me. I want something different, something more. My ice cream arrives and she digs in. You need a job, I say. Maybe a real estate license or go back to school and become a social worker. I got the real estate license, she says. It just means you fuck strangers in other people's houses. Impromptu, she belches. The scent of white wine and chocolate ice cream blasts across the table. Apologies, she says. I don't think I'm supposed to drink while I'm on this new medication. I didn't know you were on new medication, I say, sobering up. Oh yeah, a whole new regime. Do you think maybe the medication prompted this whole thing tonight? How do you know it's what you actually want to do and not some strange side effect? I didn't think the desire to explore a swingers club is listed under side effects, she says. Like I said, I'm curious. Is that a bad thing? And honestly, I like the idea of having sex with some guy not having to do his laundry, make his lunch, and shop for his socks. Can I get you anything else, the waitress asks. Just the check, I say, noticing that now several other couples from the party have come into friendlies, pink-cheeked and laughing too loud. So that's where that one was. So those are just three, not entirely random, but different pieces of the novel. And I hope that in some ways, just on a writing level, you begin to sort of see what the voice or the style of the prose is. But also, I guess I have an interest in trying. I always think very visually, and I can't write unless I can see it. So part of what I'm always writing is I'm actually writing pictures, if that makes any sense. More so than thinking about description in the classic way, or like narrative in the classic way. So, do you guys have questions or things you want to talk about?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, good. Oh, yeah. I like the unmarked water. I'm assuming it's water. That's all I know.
I could ask you a million questions. I loved the book, and I just kept thinking, where does this woman come up with this?
Now you know.
But meanwhile, I can't put it down, and I'm loving the dialogue, and I love the way that you're writing, and some of your vocabulary is like, wow, this is great to know. And then I'm thinking, I personally did not like Harry. Even at the end,
Right.
when friends who read it said, well, I thought it was redemptive and he comes around. And I kept saying, he's a fucking moron. Exactly what his parents said. To the very end, I kept saying, he is a moron, even though every once in a while he had moments
Right.
of clarity. But the whole time I'm thinking, did you start, the book starts off so violently and with so much energy. Is that where you started it? And did it take,
Yeah.
was the trajectory straight, or did you veer off here and there and then piece it all together?
No, the trajectory is pretty much as you see it. I mean, I think it does have this very, and I had this happen one other time. I wrote a novel called Music for Torching, which also started as a short story, and they both have I would call it the problem, that about 30 pages in, something big happens. So in this case, some of you will get to this, but George clonks Jane on the head with a lamp, very violently. And in Music for Torching, the couples, this married couple having a hard time, they decide to burn down their house. Now, both of which I would say are literary faux pas. You can't like burn down the couple's house on page 30 just so you don't clonk someone on the head with a lamp. Because then the question becomes, oh God, where do I go from here? So the way I look at it is then if you're going to keep going, and in both cases it just went by itself. It wasn't like I had to think about it. You in some ways have to raise the stakes, which means that then really becomes what I think of everything in the kitchen sink goes in there. And you really have to kind of commit to going all out. And for me that also means really dealing with the characters' sort of psychological lives and unpacking them. The thing that I like about Harry, which is interesting, you say you don't like him.
I love Nate.
No, but I love Nate actually too, but the interesting thing, like I think like historically throughout literature, all of the, and not to compare this, but all of the great books in literature like Crime and Punishment, you don't read it and go, oh, I love that guy. You know, it's a very modern phenomenon that we have to like the person. And someone else said to me, I'm not sure, am I supposed to like this person? I don't give a fuck if you like him or not. I mean, not to be, you know, because it's not about that. It's, you know, he's not there. I mean, it's an interesting concept, and I think it's totally where we are at this point in time. And in theory, yes, I'm supposed to write people that you like. I just never think about that. I think about the character and their story. And it's interesting because a lot of people say, am I supposed to like him? I'm thinking, I don't know. It's, you know, but it's an interesting thing. So anyway.
But how can you not like your character?
Well, here's what's, I don't have to like them. I'm interested in them. And the thing about Harry that was, I started to say, is so to me was the thing, is when I started writing it, I had a lot of resistance, like from Harry. And I'm thinking like, hey, I'm trying to write your book. Like, what's going on? I said, I'm telling you. And I realized like, part of it is I'm writing a book about a person who doesn't know himself. So what became interesting to me is that as the story goes on, and this is that trajectory thing, Harry begins to know himself. He literally unfolds, and I think it's what I would describe as a midlife coming of age story, which I hadn't really seen before.